How do I get this failing paint off my Aston Martin DB9 grille bar? Well, it just falls off. In this episode of Aston1936.com, I'm going to show you how to strip the failing paint off the bars from the grille. And in another video series leading up to this, I've already explained what's going on. But in this one, I'm actually going to show you how to get this, the remainder of the paint off the bars so we can refinish it. Now, what I found on my car is that the bars, some of the bars paint was brutally hard to get off. And on this particular bar, if we take a look in close-up, it's failing so bad, I can just literally grab sections and peel it off. And right there you can see the underlying stainless steel material. But this is what was going on, and what's just forcing me to refinish the grille is that every time I washed the car, more and more chunks were falling off and the front of it was looking awful. Well, what I've realized through this process so far is that Aston Martin completely botched the paint job on some of the bars. The ones that the finish doesn't fall off on, when I've stripped them, I've actually found that there's 2 layers of gray primer, then a black layer, and you can actually see on this failing bar that there is a black on the underside of the paint. So the black coat, and then they've got their top color coat. Well, what's missing on this one altogether, because there's the black, there's no primer coats, and there's nothing etched to this. So they literally painted right on top of smooth stainless steel. Obviously the paint's gonna fail, and here's the proof that it does. So some of the bars must have been painted on a day when the paint shop was in a good mood, where they thought they could shoot the primer. And other bars, they just went, we got to get the quota done today, skip the primer steps. But my car is not unique. I've seen other DB9s out there with the same issue. Hopefully they cured it in quality control later on in the model series, so maybe this is just an issue for the early cars. Well, it really just boils down to, at this point, we've got to get the leftover paint off of this. And I wanted to figure out how. Well, if we look a little bit at the construction of the bar, you're going to see it's not a solid bar. It's actually folded stainless steel sheet metal. And it's actually got a U shape here on the end, and then the top edges are rolled. So there's like a little, hook portion on the ends. And then there's a slot all the way down the length of the bar. Well, the inside of here is actually painted too. It's in the black that was the undercoat before the color coat. So I want to get all of this finish off. Now, if you're going to switch your bars to polished, well, you just need to get the top coat off, and then you're going to take it over to the buffing wheel, and you're going to just buff yours, and you're not going to repaint. If you're going to repaint your bars, you obviously need to get all this paint off. And I guess if you use sandpaper, you could get away with that because you're going to put a new color coat on. Well, I wanted to, I'm going to use vinyl vehicle wrap on mine. So I need to get all this old failing paint off so that the wrap sticks down to the polished stainless. Now, I didn't want to screw up the polished stainless. What if the vehicle wrap a few years from now doesn't hold up and I want to go to the polished look? I didn't want to scuff it up with sandpaper. So sanding really, to me, didn't seem like an option. Could have tried a heat gun, and I actually did a sample of that. I got a heat gun in here and I tried to see if that would lift the paint off. Well, what it started to do, it worked, but it also started to scorch the finish of the bar. And I didn't want to do that. So sanding was out, heat gun was out, which really left me with chemical stripping. And that's the process I'm going to follow today. I'm going to actually use chemical paint stripper, apply it to the bar, and get the paint to come right off. The tools we're going to need are a cheap disposable paintbrush. We're going to use this for applying the paint stripping gel. A plastic, non-scratching paint scraper. I didn't want to use a putty knife that was metal because, again, I'm afraid I don't want to scratch up the polished finish that'll be underneath. So you can get this for like $1 at the home center. An old skanky toothbrush, because that's going to help with agitating off when you're rinsing it at the end. This is a bit more of a specialty item. It's a test tube bottle brush cleaner, and you're going to need this because I'm going to use it inside the groove to pull all the slag that's going to be inside there out. So if you follow the companion blog link, I'm going to show you where you can get this off Amazon. And then I've got an old jam jar that I'm just using to hold the chemicals between coats. One of those will be helpful. You're definitely going to need some supplies to do the paint stripping, obviously. First up will be the safety gear. You're going to need several pairs of disposable gloves. I definitely have probably 20 pairs on hand because you're going to use them multiple times and you're not going to want to reuse them. Safety glasses, some sort of glasses are a must because you don't want to get any of these chemicals in your eyes. An ample supply of paper towels, you're going to be using that for cleanup. Some heavy duty foil wrap. We're going to use this to make like a little tray to do the chemical soaking in. And then you actually need, obviously, your active ingredient, the paint stripper. So this might vary by country, but I kind of searched around online. This is Clean Strip Aircraft Paint Remover. A big change has happened in 2019 that they've started to remove methylene chloride from all paint strippers. Of course, that's the magic ingredient that really makes them work. So I got a quart can of this stuff, but I also have a quart can of methylene chloride that I can spike that with to restore it to its former glory of being able to strip anything off of anything. But you may not need to have the methylene chloride. I suggest that you do your initial test with just whatever the best paint stripper is that's available in your country and market. All right, so I'm going to show you the nasty way to use chemicals to strip the paint off of a grill bar. And so we've got all the tools and chemicals laid out here. So the first step for me is we're going to make a little tin foil bathtub. And I've peeled off a sheet of aluminum foil that's longer than the bar itself because we're going to coat it up and then we're going to close it up and leave it for 24 hours. And as I talked about in the parts segment, I have my special concoction of paint remover that's a mixture of aircraft grade paint remover and some methylene chloride solvent added to it. And I've got my paintbrush. And as I do this, it's equally important. The inside of the groove is actually painted. They've got black primer or something inside of that. And I want to get rid of that, so I'm going to spend some time as I coat this up, making sure I get chemicals in there as well. Wearing gloves, I'm in a well-ventilated area, so you could be outside, you could be in your shop, but not in a small garage space with no ventilation. So I've got my chemicals here, and I'm just going to start by looping it into the center slot. And I'm letting the drippings land. I'm being pretty liberal with it because I want actually to be a little pool of the chemicals down on the tin foil for when I let it soak. So just be super liberal and just using the brush to get it all the way in there. And then I'm going to coat liberally one side of it. And sometimes this works super fast. Like by the time you're done coating it, you'll already start to see the paint wrinkling up. And sometimes it'll take nearly the whole 24 hours for the paint to finally let go. So I'm coating both sides liberally. I want to make sure it's got a really, this is kind of a jelly sort of effect. And while I have it laying here, I'm also going to hit that groove one more time from the side. Just trying to lay some more in there. There we go. Wipe my brush off as much as I can. Put my lid back on the jar. And we're just going to fold our tin foil over. So that's going to keep all the fumes inside, which is also good for your shop. And I'm just actually squashing the air out around it. Fold the edges up. So I don't want the chemicals to evaporate. They're the acetone and the things that are inside that paint stripper will be trapped then inside our little tin foil envelope here. And that's it. A couple minutes just to apply that. We're going to let it sit now for 24 hours. And tomorrow we'll go ahead and open this up and see what it looks like. So 24 hours have passed. And it's time to take a look and see if the paint stripper has done its job. Now, it's about to get a little messy, and I have a few tools that are going to help me clean off the paint residue. I've got my plastic scraper, I've got my test tube scrubby brush that I'm going to use to get inside the V-notch, and then I've got an old skanky toothbrush that I'm going to use to scrub off any stubborn spots. And then got some paper towels here because I'm going to want to wipe off the chemicals and keep them on top the tin foil, which I'm just going to roll up and dispose of appropriately afterwards, so that when I'm using the sink, hopefully I'm not washing a bunch of chemicals and junk down the drain. I'm just, it's a dry part at that point, and I'm just buffing it up. So let's come in closely and have a look and see what we get. Once in a while this doesn't work and you have to do it a second time. Most of the time though, it's worked out well. Yeah, and this time it's worked out well. So there you can see it. And maybe do a close-up run down the sides of it, but it's literally, the paint is falling off the bone. So this is going to take very little effort to clean up. So it's going to come off in sheets. So I'm literally just using the little disposable black plastic spatula, and I'm just knocking the big chunks of it off. I'm going to leave those just laying inside the tin foil. And then when I pick it up, yeah, same thing, it's all just laying there. So, because if you use sandpaper, you're going to scratch up the polished, the original stainless steel finish. And you could absolutely sand this and get rid of the paint. But then if you're ever going to switch to want the option of switching to polished, now you're going to have permanent scratches. So here's a trick. Up close, I want to get inside here. There is a whole black layer of paint as well. So I'm just going to use this spatula. I'm going to put it in and put a little twist in it. So I'm twisting it to try and make it as fat as possible. And it's going to start pushing the whole chunk of it out the back end. And now if I look down inside the groove, I'm not sure you'll be able to get that shot on the camera, it's actually clean. That comes out in one shot. So again, there'll be less chemical residue and stuff to wipe off. So I'm just going to go the other direction. Same thing. All right, so now it's time for paper towels. At this point, it's starting to be pretty dry, and it's also starting to be pretty shiny. Modern living through chemicals, or better living through modern chemicals, is that the saying? All right, so I'm going to leave that in there as well. And I'm also going to take, I just want to make sure I've got all as much of the black and the goo out of the inside. So I'm taking the stem of the bottle, the test tube brush, and I'm working it in there. And now I'm pulling the whole Christmas tree in there and just sliding it along. And anything that was left comes flying out. All right. Take another paper towel, give it one more wipe. The more you get off here, the less that gets into the drain or anything else. So you might have a quick pan down this one. And you can see it is pretty shiny already. And we're just gonna, when we put it in the sink, we're gonna just give it a quick polish to wash off any of the dried residue. But, and it's clean completely inside the groove. So I'm just gonna set that aside. Use a paper towel, just gonna wipe off my scraper a little bit. Put these aside. And close this back up with the residue all in it. And I've got that to dispose of later. Okay, so then I'm going to use a little water now. All shops should have a wash sink. And I'm literally just going to use the toothbrush and give it a quick once over. And now I'm also going to use the bottle brush to get down in the groove. And I'm going to basically get the sink running water down the groove. And do it one direction, then back the other direction. You should definitely be wearing gloves. You should definitely have safety glasses on so that if something splashes at you, you're okay. And that's about it. I'm going to just maybe use the toothbrush on the open end. That looks perfect. Another paper towel just to dry it off. And at this point, I can take my gloves off. And you can come in for a final look. So this, if you were really going for the polished look, is shiny enough you could probably put that right back on the car. Although if I was going to do the polished look, I would probably take it over to my buffing wheel on the grinder and use a little polish and bring the luster up just even a little bit more. But that's essentially the raw stainless steel and has a couple of my fingerprints on it already now because I took the gloves off. But you'd clean it up with some alcohol wipe and that baby's ready to go. So you can either take it at this point and repaint it, take it at this point and polish it, or take it at this point and do a vehicle wrap to it, which is what I'm going to do in another episode. So hopefully that's helped you out figure out how to get your grill bars ready for refinishing. And as always, I've got a companion blog article to go along with this down here. So you can check that out for links to where to get the paint strippers and the little tools and things. Up here will be my latest video. It'll probably be how to refinish this with vehicle wrap. And you can subscribe if you'd like to get more articles like this as soon as I publish them. And as always, I'd love to hear your comments. Please leave those down below. Thanks for watching.